Let's unpack this further with Chris Doyle. He's a Middle East commentator and director of the Council of Arab-British Understanding, and he's joining us live from Paris. Chris, thanks so much for speaking to us. It does feel that every few months we're at this point of talking about a ceasefire, and invariably, as it's been so far this year, a truce is not agreed. What do you make then of the latest proposal and the request for some of those amendments from Hamas?
Well, I think we are still dancing around. I don't think this is as serious as it should be. Why is it up to Steve Witkoff to say that what Hamas has agreed to or proposed is not acceptable? He's meant to be a mediator. It's not that Hamas is negotiating for a ceasefire with the United States, shortly. I mean, the United States is now in a far more direct role, even than it was in the past when trying to negotiate this form of truce or ceasefire. And I think, you just look at the images on your TV screens and you can see why this is utterly necessary, that people are being starved, they're being bombed. The amount of aid that's going in is way insufficient. It's absolutely a drop in the ocean, as the UN relief head has said. So there needs to be a lot more dynamism in these talks. But there still remains this enormous chasm between the core Israeli position and the core Hamas position, that Israel does not want to sign up. Netanyahu refuses to sign up to anything that looks like it is a cessation of military activity on a permanent basis. Whereas Hamas is talking about a 7-year ceasefire. It's talking about a long-term, credible end of fighting. Israel says this would allow it to disarm. This would allow to rearm, to gather its strength once again, and it will just mean that there'll be another war in 7 years' time. But none of this should get in the way of getting to at least a credible ceasefire deal now that allows the aid to come in properly through the United Nations and related humanitarian relief organizations, because it's absolutely vital, and then to find a far more lasting formula for the Gaza Strip, but also the rest of the occupied Palestinian territory, where I think that some may be critical of the Hamas position, is that there shouldn't be a 7-year ceasefire. There should be a credible ceasefire followed by a long-term deal that ends this once and for all, so we don't get back to these sorts of scenes and carnage and atrocities. The genocide has to be brought to an end.
Absolutely, especially since it's been going on for almost 20 months now. One analyst recently said that Benjamin Netanyahu is weaponizing diplomacy to put the U.S. envoy, Steve Witkoff, on the back foot because he is making headway in the talks with Iran, which are continuing for a 6th round very soon. Would you agree with that assessment?
I think that Netanyahu has got various agendas, and sometimes they conflict with each other even. He is actually having quite a bumpy ride with the Trump White House at the moment, and it may be a sense that Witkoff is trying to indicate that all is not lost in that US-Israeli relationship, because there are significant issues on the issue of Iran. Donald Trump does not want to see an Israeli military attack on Iran. He doesn't want to see them taking unilateral action. He has a disagreement with them on Syria and on the Houthis. The US now has a ceasefire deal with the Houthis. And indeed, the US wants to see more aid into Gaza. So in many ways, Netanyahu is seen as a problem, that he's trying to exacerbate all these conflicts at the time that the US is trying to actually wrap them up and trying to cool them. But, let's not forget, of course, that underneath all of this, the US-Israeli relationship will remain strong. The US is still providing all the weapons, the bombs. Trump hasn't stopped that. But Netanyahu is fighting for his political life. He wants to keep that coalition going. That's why he's authorized 22 brand new Israeli settlements in the West Bank. And he will not want to sign up to a deal with Hamas that looks as if he's conceded from his core positions. But that leaves the situation in an awful state, because the fate of 2.3 million Palestinians in Gaza is one of famine, bombed, being corralled into ever smaller and more dangerous areas of Gaza.
Absolutely, and the killing of Palestinians there continues. Chris Doyle, always good to get your analysis. Thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you.